explain protein, carbs, and fats. All right, let's start with carbs. Carbohydrates are I should say, favorite macronutrient group. What kind of foods fit in the carbohydrate category? Breads, pasta, muffins, cookies, ice cream, fruit, vegetables, yes, vegetables too, rice, crackers, chips, all of that yummy stuff is carbohydrates. What it fits in the protein group? Meat, fish, chicken, eggs, beans, lentils, which also fit in the carb category. All that stuff is a protein. And what fits in the fat category? Things like avocados, oils, butter, cheese, yogurt. Those are our main fats. Now, a lot of these you guys might be thinking, well, don't they kind of fit for both? Like lentils. Like a lot of people put lentils in the protein category, but it's also a carbohydrate. So how do you differentiate which category it fits in? And the way I like to explain that is flip your food label over and see how many grams of each it has. So let's say the lentils has 50 grams of carbohydrates in it and 12 grams of protein. I would categorize that as a carbohydrate rather than a protein. Does it still have protein in it? Yes, but I would put it in the carb category. And same thing with yogurt. So does yogurt have fat in it? So nowadays, they generally, like Greek yogurt, takes out the fat and just fills it with protein. So in that case, it's a protein because the label has 12 grams of protein and 0 grams of fat. But if you're having a regular old-fashioned whole milk yogurt, it'll probably have more fat than it does protein. And that's how you make that difference. And you guys want to remember, you want to eat foods from every one of these groups. Do not cut your carbs. They're not bad for you. I know right now the keto diet is the newest and greatest thing out there, and they want you to cut out all the carbs because carbs are bad and all that good stuff, which we'll go into later of why we need carbs and how our body does break it down. I do want you guys to have all of these in moderation. So carbohydrates, you guys should be trying to get 30% of your daily calories from carbohydrates. Protein, about 50%. And that leaves fat at 20%. Is this percentage flexible? Sure. So is there times where you are going to want to have a little bit more carbohydrates than protein? Yes, and that's okay. But you shouldn't be doing 80% fat and 10% protein and 10% carbs, something like the keto diet expects you to do. Everything in moderation, because remember, the changes that you make now are things that you want to be able to maintain and to keep. You don't want it to be for 5 weeks. You don't want it to be for until you lose a certain amount of pounds. You just want to keep this going as a lifestyle. If you cut things out, you're not going to be able to keep that going. I mean, it's impossible. Can you say no when your friends are all out drinking and eating cake and donuts and muffins? Are you going to say no forever? If the answer is yes, then maybe you can cut it out. But if the answer is no, then don't even try. Find a way that you can do long term. I'm going to bring my husband in so that he can explain how carbohydrates break down in your body, why we need them. Same with fat, same as proteins. And he's really awkward, just so you guys know. He doesn't like the camera. It took me about a week to get used to it. So, Ahmed, you can come on.
Hi. So yes, this is awkward. In a nutshell, my spiel today is to break down what these major food groups that Amin just described to you break down into and why our body needs them. So overall, the general picture is always about energy. So our body requires fuel simply to survive. So we breathe, we think, we digest, we build muscle, we break down muscle. All of these processes require energy. And the food that we eat fuels this process. So the carbohydrates that we eat get broken down eventually into glucose. And glucose is the main building block of something called glycogen, which is an energy storage device. Glucose also fuels our muscle cells, fuels our brain for us to go about our daily tasks. Proteins break down into amino acids. Amino acids are essential in not only the building of muscle, which is what they're most widely known for, but also on a cellular level. Amino acids are involved in all sorts of cellular processes, from DNA building to the transmission of messages across cell membranes. And then finally, fats are purely a storage of energy device. Fats get stored in our body and used as a last-ditch resort for fuel when we are out of our primary energy reserve, which is glucose. Which, as we said earlier, is stored in as glycogen. So that's why fats, when Anim was describing, they're worth 9 calories per gram. They're very calorie dense. That is a great survival device that our body uses, because if we're starving, when we break down 1 gram of stored fat, we're getting 9 calories worth of energy out of that.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. So that's what we break down these macronutrients to, and that's how our body uses them. The main source of energy, as a recap, is glucose. When we don't have glucose available, we break down fats into ketones, and that's where the name ketogenic diet comes from. It's because your body, you're just consuming fat, breaking that fat into ketones and using that as your primary source of energy, as opposed to the glucose. So that's it in a nutshell.
Well, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
So then, if you're saying that fat is you eat it and you store it, then how in the keto diet, why do they eat 75% of their calories from fat and still lose weight?
Well, it goes back to the concept of primary source of energy. So when we're eating a balanced diet and we have glucose coming in, our body is going to prefer the use of glucose as its primary source of energy. And so we'll use all of that up. And then when that runs out, we go over and we start using our fat. In diets like the ketogenic diet, the paleo diet, which completely cut out all carbohydrate food groups, essentially most of all of the caloric intake is protein and fat. And our brain is only able to use one of 2 sources of energy for its sustenance: glucose or ketones. So if there's no glucose, our body then uses all that fat that's going that we're taking in as the primary source of energy, breaks it down to ketones, and then that's how we function. So it's essentially substituting one source of energy for another.
Okay. And can you have too much ketones in your body? Can that be harmful?
It's really only harmful in patients with diabetes, type 1, type 2, especially the insulin-dependent type 2 diabetics. They could go into something called ketoacidosis, more so the type 1s than the type 2s, but also in type 2s in some cases. But for most of us, we can function in a state of ketosis just fine.
And what happens if you do eat some carbs on that diet? Does it reverse the whole process, or?
I don't know if there's enough science out there to answer that question definitively. I don't know if it reverses the whole process, but again, our body is going to prefer that glucose source. So if you are strictly keto and then take in a large dose of carbohydrates, essentially your body's going to be like, oh my God, I have my favorite back, and it's going to switch back into that glucose burning mode. So
cool.
All right.
Well, thanks.
Absolutely. Nice. Sorry about the awkwardness, guys.
Okay, you can get out of here. All right. So that is a lesson in a wrap. If you guys want to listen to this in the speed ×2 to make it go by faster, you can totally do that. And let's talk about the take-home lesson. What's the point of this video, and what are we supposed to do for the week? This week, the challenge will be to pay attention to the amount of each macronutrient group you are eating in your diet. So the point of this. So if you are having, let's say, a bagel for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch, and pasta for dinner, you may be having too many carbs. If you are having egg whites for breakfast, turkey slices and chicken for lunch, and fish for dinner, you might not be having enough carbs. So I want you guys to be paying attention to how much of each you're having, and that is the goal for this week, along with your calorie counting. So let me tell you guys what our restrictions or what the goals are. 50% of your calories should come from protein, 30% of your calories should come from carbs, and 20% of your calories should come from fat. I am going to make a short video just showing the screen and how you calculate these calories so that you know, like, if your calorie limit is 1500, how many of those calories should be coming from each macronutrient group. And remember, check-in is on Sunday, and update your food logs. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you.